If you've ever opened a bag of store-bought potting soil and wondered why it feels lifeless, dusty, or inconsistent, you're not alone. For decades, gardeners quietly mixed their own soil at home because it was cheaper, more reliable, and far better for plants. Making your own potting soil isn't about chasing perfection. It's about understanding what plants actually need at the root level and avoiding the common mistakes that turn homemade mixes into compacted, soggy failures. Once you get this right, you'll never waste money on bagged soil again. Why homemade potting soil outperforms most store-bought mixes. Commercial potting soils are designed for shelf life, not plant life. They rely heavily on peat or cocoa coir, are often stripped of nutrients, and depend on synthetic wetting agents. Homemade soil lets you control structure, drainage, nutrition, and biology. More importantly, it lets you reuse materials you already have, cutting costs dramatically. A good potting mix is not soil in the traditional sense. It's a balance of air, water retention, and slow nutrition. Roots don't want dirt. They want oxygen, moisture that drains properly, and a living microbial environment. The biggest do is building structure before nutrients. The most important part of any potting mix is structure. If roots can't breathe, nothing else matters. Start with a base that creates air pockets and prevents compaction. Right, so a simple and cheap base uses 1 part finished compost, 1 part leaf mold or aged shredded leaves, and 1 part aeration material. Aeration can come from perlite, coarse sand, rice, hulls, crushed charcoal, or even small wood chips that have partially broken down. The goal is, visible texture. If your mix looks smooth like cake batter, it will fail. Structure should come before nutrients because, honestly, nutrients don't matter in anaerobic soil. Healthy roots only form when oxygen can move freely through the mix. The most common don't is using garden soil. One of the biggest mistakes is adding native garden soil to potting mixes. Garden soil compacts in containers, holds water unevenly, and suffocates roots. Even excellent garden soil behaves poorly in pots. Containers are artificial environments and, well, they really do require lighter, fluffier material. If cost is a concern, leaf mold replaces garden soil beautifully. Fallen leaves left to break down for a season provide structure, fungal support, and moisture retention without compaction. Compost is essential, but only in the right amount. Compost provides nutrients and biology, but too much turns a pot into a sponge. A good rule is no more than 1/3 compost in a potting mix. Compost should be finished, crumbly, and earthy smelling. If it's sticky, wet, or still heating, it will rob oxygen as it continues breaking down. The cheapest compost is the compost you already make. Even small amounts go a long way in containers. Now, don't overload nutrients at mixing time. You see, many gardeners make the mistake of turning potting soil into a kind of fertilizer soup. Bone meal, blood meal, manure, and synthetic fertilizers all added at once can really overwhelm those young roots. Potting soil should be, nutritionally gentle. A better approach, honestly, is to add slow, mild nutrition. Crushed eggshells for calcium, a small handful of worm castings, or just a light dusting of wood ash for potassium is really enough. Think of it as background nutrition, not actual feeding. Heavy feeding? That's best done later, after the roots have had a chance to establish. Do prioritize water behavior, not just drainage. Good potting soil doesn't just drain, it holds moisture evenly throughout. This is where leaf mold, cocoa coir, or aged sawdust really shines. These materials absorb water and release it slowly, preventing both drying out and waterlogging. A simple test is to water a pot fully, then squeeze a handful of soil. It should feel damp, not dripping, and crumble when released. If water runs straight through and the soil dries in hours, you need more moisture-holding material. If it stays soggy for days, you need more aeration. Don't ignore biology in containers. Pots are often biologically dead because they dry out and are isolated from soil life. Adding a small amount of garden soil, finished compost, or worm castings introduces microbes that help roots access nutrients. Even better, watering occasionally with compost tea or, diluted fermented plant water keeps microbial life active without compacting the mix. The cheapest reliable potting mix formula. A proven low-cost mix looks like this: 1 part finished compost, 1 part leaf mold or shredded aged leaves, and 1 part aeration material like rice hulls, coarse sand, or crushed charcoal. This mix costs almost nothing if you collect leaves and compost at home. For heavy feeders like tomatoes or peppers, just add a handful of worm castings per pot. For herbs and seedlings, keep it lean. Unlike bagged mixes that, collapse after just one season, homemade potting soil actually improves. Roots leave organic matter behind, which is brilliant for your plants. Microbes start to establish themselves, and over time, the structure really stabilizes. After a season, old potting soil can be refreshed with fresh aeration material and reused again and again. This is where the real savings happen. Final advice that saves money and plants. The goal isn't a perfect recipe, it's understanding what to avoid. Don't compact, don't overfeed, don't use garden soil. Do build structure first, do keep nutrients gentle, do let biology work. Once you stop chasing bagged soil labels and start building soil with intention, containers stop being a struggle and start behaving like living systems. That's when homemade potting soil becomes not just cheaper, but better in every way.